Hey guys, and welcome back to part 2 of my 10-year anniversary as a digital artist. So we're not going to spend too much time. I just want to say hey, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much if you're returning to this series, if you're a returning subscriber, and of course for all of you who are my TikTok subscribers and community, hi guys. I love you so much. Thank you for being here. I will say to you guys, if you haven't watched part 1 of this, then you may want to go and check it out because it's going to be a little bit of a timeline, at least the first 2 parts of this. If you want to know where this all started and where this all came from, then go and check out part 1, which I will link down below up here in the top corner as well, and it will be linked at the end of this video too. So let's go ahead and get straight into this. Where did we leave off? We left off at pen and paper. So Topher and Marius were looking like this. And we're also looking like this. Wow. What a travesty. What a travesty. Still, we've come as far as we've come, and that's what this series is all about, you guys. It's worth starting somewhere to end up in another place, right? So the next step for me really was feeling like pen and paper wasn't enough. I struggle with perspective and posing and things like that, so I wanted to be able to put them as the same characters in different positions and environments and scenes and situations. And it was just going to take me far too long to learn how to draw perfectly, and because I have a slight tendency towards perfectionism, my creativity was kind of the one place in my life that I could control. So a couple of other ones perhaps, but that's why I kind of tend to have a leaning towards perfectionism and maybe even a slight OCD when it comes to my artwork. Thank God I am so far beyond that. It did really used to restrict me a lot because I would never allow myself to be quite done with something. And even when I was done with something, I wasn't necessarily super happy with it. At least 80% of the time. It was very few times where I actually was like, oh yeah, I did it. It looks amazing kind of thing. This is back then, obviously. So 2D wasn't enough for me. I needed more. I needed depth. I needed to be able to play with these characters, right? In a way that didn't require me to have to draw everything from scratch on a piece of paper. And call me lazy, call me cheating, I don't care. It is what it is. I wanted something else because it wasn't necessarily about me becoming an artist. Not back then. It was about just being able to do stuff with my characters, to illustrate scenes from the novel or to do even different things with them when I got inspired by music and movies and stuff. Like, oh yeah, Topher and Marius be so cool doing that. Let me recreate it with them. It wasn't about being an artist. It was just about bringing my fantasy to life. That's all I cared about, right? I took to the internet. Now, back then I did not have broadband. We would just use the mobile hotspot on my, I think it was on my mum's phone. Hey, hi, Dion. You want to say hi, babe? We only really had mobile data that we could use, and I had a really old, very cheap laptop that was just for documents, and it was just a very simple laptop. So I connected and started having a look on the internet for alternatives. Now, I faced 2 major problems. As I was looking for how to create your own character, the first problem that I came up against was the simplicity of everything. A lot of what I was seeing coming up was things like, you know, stuff for kids, just being able to design some funny character and you press the arrow next to their face and you get a different face. Maybe you can change their skin color or their hairstyle, like a very early version of The Sims, right? Now, The Sims was also a huge viability for me because I think at the time Sims 3 was out, and by the time we got to Sims 3, I don't know if you know anything about it, but you're actually able to be a little bit more detailed with facial features, like the width of the nose or the height of the mouth. You can really get a bit more specific, right? So Sims was kind of the answer to being able to be more detailed in how I wanted to create my character rather than just choosing from 10 presets of hair, right? But the second problem is what I faced with The Sims, which was I couldn't do what I wanted with them. To a certain element, when you are playing the Sims game, it's a life simulation game. You can get them to fall in love, you can get them to live their lives, have careers, and even in some expansion packs they can have magical powers, or there's aliens. Like, there's so much you can do in the Sims, but it's still limited to whatever has already been created and placed inside the game. That was the second problem. I just no, I want to be able to decide what they're doing. If I want to put them inside the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I can. If I want to put them out on another planet and totally make up my own aliens and creatures from my own imagination, I want to be able to do that, not just from what is preset and already given to me. It's kind of like how I talk about fate versus destiny. Just from my perspective, fate is just to accept something that's been handed to you, right? To say, okay, well, this is what life handed me. I guess this is what I've got to deal with. This is just that's what it is. Now, on the one hand, yes, but I feel like destiny comes in when you begin to decide what you're going to do with what comes in. Are you just going to settle for it? Maybe it's something great and you settle for it. Great, that's awesome, right? But if it's not, are you just going to stop there and be like, well, this is what life dealt me, so I guess I've got to live with it? No, not necessarily, not always. In fact, most of the time you can figure out how to work with whatever has happened, or you can look for something further or beyond, right? Not in every single 100% times of the cases, but most of the time. And in this instance, certainly, I was not happy with just having these fated presets of what I could do with my characters, even in something as expansive as The Sims, or even like Second Life and stuff like that. I wanted total, complete, absolute control. So I kept on looking and looking and looking, and I think what I realized is that I wanted my characters to be three-dimensional in the digital sense. So instead of watching The Lion King, for example, which is a 2D animation, we would watch, like the live action Lion King. That's 3D, right? There's a 3D depth to the characters. They're not just a flat image on the screen. You know what I'm trying to say? I wanted that. And I think what I typed into Google was create your own 3D characters or something. It must have been something specifically that I put in 3D, because then Daz came up. Now the program is called Daz Studio, but the company is called Daz 3D. It must have been an ad right at the top, because I put in the word 3D, I put in the word create your own characters, and that is exactly what Daz Studio is. Now, as previously discussed in part 1, I am not a 3D modeler. So yes, I could use programs like Blender, which is amazing because that's a free program. So is Daz Studio, free. It's free. And I'm not talking about it's free and you get like a paid plan with some... No. The whole thing is free. Now, there are, of course, additional things you can buy, certainly with Daz Studio. But the program itself and everything that you want to be able to do with it, everything is accessible to you. And that was a huge deal for me. Because my whole family has just been on the poverty line forever. It is literally all I have known. So to be able to have something that was free, I didn't have to pay for it. Everything fell into place. That was destiny. That was me refusing to accept what was just put in front of me. I could work with that if I wanted to. I would have worked with it if I had to. But no, there's always this part of me that's like, let me see if there's another way. Let me just see if there's another way. If there's not, it's fine. I will accept whatever. That's when I will say, okay, I'll take whatever is for now. But it's always important for me to want to find another way. And I'm glad that I did, you guys, because that's when I found Daz Studio. So Daz Studio is the program that I use pretty much primarily. It was where I started. It's where everything else spanned from. I did get into sculpting and modeling a little bit later on. However, Daz Studio is just what I love to use, you guys. Again, it's not about me necessarily having sculpted something from scratch. That's not my aim. My aim is to put my characters into their world, to create a world for them and stuff. So what I discovered was that, much kind of like The Sims, I could find certain characters on the Daz store that I could sort of play with and morph. Now, morphing is what we would call that making the nose wider, or moving the lips up and down, moving the eyes in and out, making the face longer, all of these different tiny little kinds of things. Now, it's not sculpting just yet, but morphing is kind of just like, you are sculpting technically, but you're not using a brush, you're just using a dial, right? You just pull it this way, it makes it longer. You pull it this way, it makes it shorter. It's just kind of, that's all I knew at first. I didn't know how to light things, I didn't know how to texture things, I barely knew how to pose and stuff. So one of the most fun things, obviously, was then playing with this, right? And eventually, after much trial and error, because that is how I work, as you know, trial and error. Get it wrong, get it wrong, get it wrong, get it wrong. If I get it wrong 1,000 times, that's one less way of me getting it wrong. I'm closer to what is right. And that is just how I work in my art, you guys. So when I came across terminology or a certain aspect of the creation process that I didn't know, that's when I would go to Google, right? I didn't go to YouTube and was like, okay, DAZ Studio from scratch, and then just follow along with it. I kind of just played around until I hit a roadblock, and then I search it up. What does such and such mean? How do I use it? How do I apply it? Blah, 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 blah. But eventually I got to the point where finally I could say, I think this is what my characters look like. Or at least back then, at that moment, I could say, this is what my characters look like. And so we ended up going from this to this. Oh my lord. Are you seeing this right now in front of your eyes? Right? Look, the thing is, my perspective now obviously is so different. I can look back and laugh, number one, because it's my own artwork. But number two, because obviously you're laughing at how little you knew and how ridiculously proud of it you felt at the time. I'm not telling myself not to feel proud back then. Of course, feel proud past me. But it's just funny. It's kind of endearing. Like, oh, you're so cute that you thought that was good. Wait until you see where you're going to end up, okay? So I was finally at the point where we made it to 3D. So the first thing that you'll notice here is kind of how flat everything is. There are some shadows, of course. You see in the background there, like I did not know what I was doing with environment. I had no idea how to light at all. I think I had one sharp spotlight. You can see the sharp shadow underneath Marius's chin. It's absolutely ridiculous. I did not know how to get depth in their hair. Look at the hair, man. There's no like strandage or anything. And even when it is, it's so... Oh my gosh, the collar of Marius. Are you seeing this collar, you guys? I didn't know how to do anything. It's absolutely, unbelievably ridiculous. But back at the time, that didn't matter. All that mattered is that I had got them from this to this. That was what was important, was finally being able to move them in a 3D sense, be able to move the camera around them and see different perspectives of their face, to be able to move their arms and legs wherever I wanted without having to sketch and re-sketch and rub out and draw and blah, 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 blah. It's okay. I'm not claiming to be, I do not want to be that kind of artist. I don't even want to. So after that point, I did lose a little bit of interest in trying to be perfect and stuff. And I think that was kind of a good thing, because as I just enjoyed playing with them in the program and creating art with them and stuff, everything else just kind of became a necessity for me to learn how to light properly, how to texture properly, how to render properly, how to post work properly, which is taking the final render, putting it in Photoshop and working on color management. So naturally kind of what came next was things like posing, being able to do different things with them. For example, things like this, and of course things like this. Now you'll see here as well, I'm starting to get into the idea of post work, specifically with brushes and stuff, you know, adding effects or after effects, let's call them. And you can see here I still don't really have an idea on posing and stuff. Both of them just look like they're kind of dead in the eyes. They're staring off somewhere random. So I'm at the point now where I'm starting to have fun with posing them. And what came next was scenery, environment, because as you can see from this and this and this, I was not putting anything behind these guys, because obviously I was still focused on just the two of them. But it was time for me to go a level further. How can I put them in certain environments? Which is what led me to things like this. Now, as you can see here, this one is super, super simple. All I did was just put a rock underneath her. You can see the bad fracturing of this over in the bottom right-hand corner. Just absolutely ridiculous. And again, you can see me here playing with brushes. I've put some sort of smoky effect in the background, not knowing what I'm doing at all. This rock looks awful, but at the time it felt good to finally put them on something, around something, start sort of slowly building up a world around them. Here is another one. This is another example. I don't know if I have this one digitally, so I just had to take a picture of it, you guys. But as you can see, they've now got two completely different outfits on, so I was starting to play with that idea as well. I was playing with props, so you can see this tree next to them here. The lighting is absolutely ridiculous. Everything is way, way too sharp. There's no depth here whatsoever. This is when I started to get into the idea of themes. And then we also have ones like this was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed doing this one. This was kind of my first time of playing with camera angles. As you can see, I've got like a slight a tilt called a Dutch angle, right? Playing with the idea of the camera, not just moving the character around now, not just putting them in scenes like this, not even just adding that background plane. That is just a flat piece of card outside the window there. In movies, they would call it a matte painting, which those are fun cheat sheet ways of me being able to start, again, putting more depth, more adventure, more character, and more story into what I was doing with them. So yeah, I'd finally kind of gotten to the point where I was out of the 2D and I was finally into the 3D. I was at the point where not only could I move them around and see what they look like and play with them and stuff, I could also change their outfits, I could put them in different scenes and settings, etc., etc. And I kind of felt like that was the moment where I really hit the ground running with my imagination, because then everything could just come out. I want to put them in China, put them in China. I want to put them in history, I can put them in history. I want to put them out of space, I put them out of space. I want to make them a superhero, I make them a superhero. I want to do them cooking, then they can do cooking. Anything. Everything suddenly became possible with these two. Everything. And I promise you, the book went out the window. Okay? I was not interested in the writing part anymore. It was all about the art. Okay? So now I had this idea that I could play with them, put them in loads of different situations and stuff. I kind of reached another point where I felt like, okay, I can do better. Certainly when it came to the character creation. I wasn't so fussed too much about scenery and environments. Again, I don't really have too much interest in creating it from scratch and stuff as much as I did to Topher and Marius, because, you know, I'm happy to just, if I have an idea, for example, a futuristic cyberpunk kind of thing, there's a lot that I could already use online. I can put things in places to get it to look how I want it to look and as close to my imagination as possible. I don't really want to spend too much time being like, okay, I want the building to look exactly this way, so let me make it all the way from scratch. It wasn't really about that. And so I thought it might be fun if you guys had a look at their upgrades over time, because they are the thing that I've worked on the most. Their character, their body, their faces. So Marius has only had 4 upgrades, whereas Topher has had a full-on 6. And that is just because I generally find females a little bit more intricate to work with, certainly when it comes to their facial features and stuff. And Marius, I just kind of reached a point where I was happy with him. I have upgraded him in terms of his skin texture and his facial hair, and even shaving all his hair off as well back in 2022. I like that it can just grow back whenever I want it to or wherever he wants it to. So that's mostly the kind of upgrades he's had. It's just been his skin texture mostly, and his facial hair and certain features like that, but mostly the frame and the shape and his structural features have mostly stayed the same. As opposed to Topher, I would consider her to have over time just become more accentuated. Not like she's got a bigger nose now or anything like that. It's just I've been able to hone the details in more and more and more to the point where I can get her to just look like a regular human being rather than a robot or a 3D digital character kind of thing. But I do feel like I'm close enough now to these guys just looking like 2 normal human beings. So I thought it would be fun for you guys to have a look at their upgrades. We'll start with Marius because he's just had less upgrades. So we're going to start here with this image. This is Marius Genesis 1, 2014. This is how he originally started. Flat features, flat texture, flat hair, everything just being flat, right? Yeah. Not to mention that horrendous t-shirt. I literally hate that t-shirt. After all of these years, I hate his t-shirt. Now let's have a look at version 2, which is this. Now I've put them side to side. This is an image that I managed to find. Usually after I update them, I put the old versus the new side by side just so I can see how far I've come. And luckily I've managed to keep most of these images. So here he is in Genesis 3 form. This is version 2 of him. That would have been about 2016. Now after this was second, we went to the 3rd iteration. This is version 3 of Marius. Now as you can see here, I have literally come so far, not just with the creation of course of the character, but the depth, the texturing of the skin, of his face, being able to use a rim light and play with highlight around the outside of him like that. So as you can see here, you guys, huge, massive, major difference. Let me just put them up here for an example. Here we have number 1. Here we have number 2, and over here we have number 3. You see the difference, like absolutely astounding. I cannot believe how far he has come, how far I have come. And then finally we end up at version 4, which is where he is right here and right now. It is the one that I have the most fun with. I'm sure I'll grow his hair back at some point, but do you know what? I'm kind of cool with it. Just looks like a real dude. Look at him all sitting there all casual with his shoes on. I love it. I absolutely love it. 10 whole years of Marius. Let's have a look at Topher now. Let's start with the top row here. This is Genesis 2, as you can see, 2014 to 2016. I have Genesis 3, 16 to 17, and Genesis 8, 17 to 2020. I will say there was no Genesis 4, 5, 6, or 7 for some reason. Daz 3D jumped from Genesis 3 straight to Genesis 8. So Genesis 8 was the next iteration for Daz, and therefore the next iteration for Topher as well. So as you can see here, guys, we've gone from being this sort of plasticky, robotic, slightly almost too perfect Uncanny Valley version into something slightly more realistic, a little bit more depth, a little bit more going on with the texture, certainly with her hair, of course. I remember that hair. I loved it very, very much. But yeah, it was a natural advancement, a natural growth. Now, if we move up a row, we're going to see these two. Now, this was Topher. She was still Genesis 8, but she was the second version of Genesis 8. I had a re-update with her later on in 2020. I altered her skin texture a little bit. And one thing that I didn't really like back then was her eyebrows. They're a little bit too sharp for me. As you can see, I have very soft ones because I don't really draw them or play with them or anything. And then finally we have Genesis 8.1. This was 2022 when she was updated the last time, and this is how I intend to use her now, at least for the next year or so, until whatever update comes next. But I am happy with where she is now. She is absolutely gorgeous. I love to play with her. I love fiddling around. I love her beautiful smile. I love her being able to mess around with the slight asymmetrics to her face. She's got my hair now, and my hair is always up in, well, not today, but if you know me, you know 90% of my time my hair is up in a bun, so she's finally got that. So I'm going to put it up here, right smack bang in the middle. Ta-da! You can take a look for yourself, you guys. And just for reference, I will also put them side by side. Check it out. Oh my gosh. What is that? What is that? And so now, for the past few years, I have been at the point where I can go mental. And I have done everything. Like this, and 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 this. I just go mental with them, and I never ever want to stop, you guys. I never want to stop. So it's been a long, long journey, as you can see, from concept to creation, from pen to pixel, and finally my world was created. It is now so open for me to do whatever I want, whenever I want. Oh my gosh, I am having so much fun. I have had so much fun, and I cannot wait to see where I go from here now that I feel like I'm in a place where anything is possible. So that is the story of how I created Topher and Marius, how I ended up at this point, how they ended up at this point. It is their 10-year anniversary. It's my 10-year anniversary as a digital artist, but it is their 10th birthday. So happy birthday, Topher and Marius. I hope we have another 10 years together doing crazy, crazy stuff. Who knows where we're going to go, where this is going to take us. One day we will publish your book and it will be amazing and everybody's going to fall in love with it as much as I do. I'm so proud of them. I'm so proud of me. So in the next video, you guys, we will have a look at my top 10 most favorite and least favorite pieces of art. You guys can enjoy having a laugh with me while we take the mick out of how horrendously bad I used to be and how good I thought I was. And we can revel in how far I've come and can get to share a few of my favorite pieces with you guys, which is going to be really important because they just mean so much to me. I will be putting all 10 of my favorite pieces of art up on my Redbubble store, so you guys can go and check it out. If you feel like you want to purchase anything, then go for it. There's no obligation, of course, but I would highly recommend you go and check it out, just to be able to support me. If you're looking for another way to support me, if you guys are waiting for my tarot deck, then don't worry, news is coming soon. As soon as I've had it, I can check it out, see if I want to be able to edit anything or whatever, and then I can put it up for you guys for sale. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the next one, you guys. See you soon!